happy?
I am.
Okay. Whee! Hello, everybody. Ta-da! Oh, I'm gonna move the mic forward.
Oh yeah, I completely spaced.
Good morning, and I'm not.
You're not wearing a sweater. You're unclothed.
I feel naked, but not really. Welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
We were talking about logistics for this weekend because we have stuff we have to do when the shop is closed. So I got distracted. I took this guy off because I'm hot and I've already worn this for like 2 weeks straight. I got
Fuzzies.
no runny nose under the mask. You know,
allergies.
Maybe it's allergies. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in trying to make up for yesterday's dismalness for Vard, North Carolina.
And Liz and the minion there.
And it's Dear Becky and Lizzie time. I need to go find something to put on. Ooh, I'm gonna put on my Jupiter crop.
Ooh.
So while I'm doing this,
We have 2 questions.
and we could always talk about Ranunculus a little bit. Oh, here's my filler while I'm getting dressed on camera. Woo! And I'm putting this on because Patagonia is one of our yarns of the week. This is a much denser fabric than if you did the Ranunculus out of a Patagonia. You're doing the Patagonia,
I'm
right?
doing the
Let's
Ranunculus.
sidebar.
I am doing it on a bigger knee, but you know.
She's doing it on an 11. It's probably hard to see from where you are over there, but see, you can kind of see light through. Yeah, like hold it out. Yeah, see that? You can't see light through this. This was probably done on like a 7. I mean, I can see a little bit of light through here. I can see the camera through here when I hold it up, but all of these colors that I'm wearing should be in stock except for the blue.
We do still have a little bit of red.
We have more than a little bit of red. We just, excuse me, don't have a full bag of the red.
This is just so soft. Like,
yes, and see, this is soft too, but it's stranded color work. It's a little denser than that. That's very soft. It's 100% organic merino, but it's soft.
it doesn't feel as soft in the ball or in the twist.
Yeah, I find that's the case of many yarns though.
I think it's that whole blooming.
It's blooming. It's when it's in the twist or in a ball. Sometimes it's pulled a little tighter, not necessarily going to stretch out, but there's more compactness to it. So you can't always, sometimes when you feel it, you're like, oh, this is so squishy and soft. And some people will feel this and be like, meh. And even though this is not tightly wound up, this is the Ultra Alpaca, you will find that it will feel different when it's knit. So sometimes it's really important for yarn shops and places to have samples knit up. And I wish we had more money and more time to do that.
And we try and have samples of the yarn. Like, we're
Maybe
not going to have every
colorway.
colorway knit up,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll try and have at least a sample of
That's
how like the yarn.
That's one of the reasons why I've picked the regular Cascade 220 for my Angel's Envy, if I ever get back to it. Because a lot of our workhorse basics, we don't necessarily have samples of in the shop because those are the ones we get around to last in terms of getting squishy samples knit up in. But it's a decent yarn for being 100% wool, you know. It's springtime. Ugh. It's getting there at least. So quick sidebar again. I'll probably have many of these. You know me.
One of our knitters was in shopping yesterday and she squirreled, like complete change of pace in the middle of shopping. It was like, and squirrel. And she was like, I'm sorry. And it's like, no, I deal with that every day.
Yeah, you know.
It's
That's
okay.
what that comment had to deal with. Okay, I heard that comment and I knew it was probably had to do with me. But okay. So I went home last night and I wanted to start one of my ranunculi. So, because I feel like on this one, I need to be ahead of the game because with Echo Point, there was enough basic qualities to it that I could be like, oh, I'll make it with you. It'll be great. And this one. Yes.
That's because I started before she did.
No. This has nothing to do. I mean, you started like, it doesn't matter because when I started mine, she started 2 more. So she wins anyway, whatever. That's not what, no, it honestly is not. You can think that.
No, I know
If that
you were
helps.
filming your,
If that helps you sleep at night.
it really doesn't. It's just,
It's because I already have knitters, maybe I could say panicking or freaking out or just being a little intimidated by the pattern, because just going to be congested today, because the start of it has 2 stretchy cast-ons, and if something is challenging right at the beginning, like something you're not used to doing, you're already off on the like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Like, it sets things off on a different note. So I'm trying to get cast-ons filmed because Midori, I checked out her videos. We keep saying she's got great videos, use them. I went and checked them out and they are good. They're short. And I think because they are meant for people who speak different languages, because she is from Japan and you have people of all different languages making this. She has these short little videos with no words. Like there's no talking in them because it's just demonstrating what to do. And so I already have a video on provisional cast on and I looked at hers and it's the same as mine. So I'm probably going to start making a playlist over on my tips and tricks. I'll make a playlist just for the Ranunculus, which means like, excuse me, videos I have everywhere that I think are at all relevant. I will condense into a playlist as well. Like you can search through my whole page or you can look at that playlist. I learned the double twist loop cast on yesterday. And I went home, I'm like, I'm gonna make a video and not using this yarn because this yarn is so teeny tiny. This is the one I'm doing the double loop twist cast on. I did it with worsted weight yarn. I found out 2 things yesterday when I tried to film after a full day of work. Usually I film on Mondays.
It's not.
I'm probably not going to do that unless we're absolutely desperate for a video like on the spot, because 1, I was tired and I wasn't necessarily explaining things well. And it was taking a lot longer and I'm like, I'm never going to get this edited, at least not tonight. 2, my cat was mad at me and actually making noise in the background and headbutting me, coming up and physically headbutting me. He also did that this morning, by the way, but it's not as bad. He's used to me filming in the morning. Luckily, the headbutting this morning only made me spill some coffee while I was trying to take photos. So I just took a picture of spilled coffee and put it on Instagram. It didn't spill on what I was knitting, thank goodness. But you better believe I yelled at him. And he was probably like, but why? I don't understand why you're so mad.
I'm trying to play with you and love you.
I'm trying to get your attention and make you love me. Yeah. He did it last night. I think he was just annoyed because I'm not home all day and then I'm ignoring him. But the second side effect of that is he's actually looking out for my mental well-being because he's saying, don't do this right now because you're already brain dead. So I have plans to make this Monday's tips and tricks focus. It could be several short videos that are on the cast on for the Ranunculus. This is my stretchy cast on. The double twist loop cast on for the wider neck is a little tricky. It's doable, but a little tricky. And I want to do it better justice than I did. I don't know if it's one I'm going to, I first said I'm not going to draw anything out because I'm just going to do these short videos, and her videos are super short. They're like a minute long, or only a few minutes long. I'm going back and forth on that because it might be helpful, but it might not. But it turns out that at least the start of the provisional cast on, I have a good video for. You don't want to watch the whole video because it talks about releasing live stitches later on in it, which is not quite what her cast on does. So we'll see what I have time and energy for. I don't want to overpromise and then not be able to function. So, but I'm really excited with this. And if there's time, it might not be till Tuesday. And maybe I'll get a little more done by Tuesday. The fabric this creates, I mean, look at that, it's see-through. Like, you can see my mouth through this. La, la. Compared to what I'm making with the coral color on the teeny tiny needles. It's kind of cool. I will say there's some getting used to teeny tiny yarn on big needles if you've never tried that before. So if it's your first sweater, you may not want to go too thin on the yarn. You know, we actually have questions today.
We do.
That I should let us get to, and then I can circle back to things if there's time. So, however you would like to.
So we'll start with the first and that you sent me, and then I will go to the second. That yes. The first one, it was sent to Rebecca, so as she forwarded it to me. So I don't know necessarily that it doesn't have a tag. But
please, if you want them done on a Thursday, please try to send them to liz@sundragonartandfiber.com. This was emailed to rebecca@sundragonartandfiber.com, but it said Liz in it. So I sent it to her thinking we're going to include it here. So
yeah. So what is the most difficult pattern you have accomplished in your knitting journey?
That's a tough one because there's different definitions of what difficult is. Yeah. Like what it's a personal evaluation of what difficult is. Like some people think the papillon looks incredibly challenging, and we have tackled that and mastered it. Yeah. And I wouldn't put it in the difficult category once you're used to it. There's a lot of things that I wouldn't put in the difficult category once you're used to it. So do you have any thoughts off the top of your head about most difficult? I'm still thinking.
For me, like, I work at a yarn shop. I get to sit at the feet of the voodoo master for like all day. I listen to her all day long. So like difficult is only, like how difficult you're going to try and, everything is doable. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if the pattern's messed up, it has difficult.
Makes it more difficult. Yeah.
For me, things with a lot of purling are difficult. Not because purling is hard. I just don't like to do it. Like really don't like to do it. So I started a sweater that was a piece sweater, and I got through the back and half of a front, and I put it away because there was a lot of purling.
Yeah.
Lace used to intimidate me, but like listening to Rebecca talk about reading a chart is like, oh, that, brioche isn't as scary. Cables aren't as scary.
A lot of people think brioche is super crazy, so that would probably go on my most difficult. But
when I did a brioche cabled hat, and I think the thing that terrified me the most on that was the provisional cast on. And Rebecca was like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, you get a crochet hook and and I was like, oh, it sticks and string. So
yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted by
I know you're looking at pens.
I'm looking at my pens because I have a project that I'm doing, taking this and making it only 2 colors, and maybe you all see it in May. So no, like difficult, like my Wellerman, I can go grab it. That's got a whole lot of cables in it. I don't think it's the most challenging. I can think of ones that people think are super challenging that I haven't done yet. So I can't say I've accomplished it, but like I find shawls are a great like way to experiment. So this has a whole lot of cabling in it, and the construction was interesting because it started with the bottom edge and got thinner as it went.
Started down here.
So there was a lot to keep track of in terms of charts and things. So this one I would put in a pretty difficult in terms of just having to be organized to get it done. But it wasn't super challenging.
Once dragon.
You get what?
The dragon with the cables
that yes, thank you. I'll go get that. what I'll throw out as something that people have found challenging that I have not tackled yet is fox paws is one thing. I think you're right, Liz. This might be the most challenging one that I'm about to grab. And I've done it twice. I want to say this is called like Tahisha, Queen of the Dragons or something. This had building cables sideways in it. So to get, this was a 30-page long pattern with all kinds of pictures. It was just for the dragon. And then I put the border edges on. It's the idea that you can take this dragon and put it in something else.
And you did, you put it in a sweater.
I put it on the back of a sweater for my niece. That's a really good call. I'd kind of forgotten about this. In terms of cables, this is the most intricate thing that I've done. And I'll put the name of it and the author and the link to Ravelry in the comments.
Would you class it though? Because this is the most
kind of
difficult
stuff.
pattern. Would you class it as one of the most difficult patterns?
Maybe. Yeah. Because, and I mean, well, it's hard. It's like, I would class it as one of the most challenging patterns that I've done, but not necessarily the most difficult, because she had really good instructions and she had really good pictures to help. It won't help everybody, but
I think that difficult and challenging, and like if a pattern is not well written, it can be very difficult to do.
Yes. So I think the choice of words there, and we don't know what the question writer was intending for what most challenging pattern or most difficult. I like that you're piecing that out, because sometimes a pattern is difficult because it's poorly written. I think it's hard to understand.
I think, and sometimes patterns can be difficult because we make assumptions.
Yes.
And we don't read them.
And like, when I say poorly written, I'm not trying to trash pattern writers when I say that. Usually it's not that it's poorly written, it's that it's written from that pattern writer's perspective and it makes complete sense to them, but not everyone's brains work in the same way. So what is, from an internal perspective, a well-written pattern may be hard for someone else. Maybe I have allergies. May be really hard for someone else to understand. And that's the benefit of having a lot of test knitters. Because the ranunculus that we're doing, I don't think is too difficult or too challenging, but I may be more in sync with the pattern writer. I've seen a lot of people make them and enjoy them, which is why we picked it for the knit along. It doesn't mean it's going to be a piece of cake for everybody, but it means with some perseverance, hopefully you'll have a sweater that you like.
I would list the ranunculus as a not, like, it can be challenging because there are things in the pattern that could be more difficult for some people to do.
Or might be the first time you're tackling it.
Might be the first time you're tackling it.
German short rows on lace weight yarn was a little bit of a challenge yet last night.
But she also has very detailed explanations of what all of her shorthand means. So like she'll tell you written out, and then she has the videos.
And she's got color-coded pictures. Yeah. And I will say last night, so the increase row right after the cast on, the ribbing.
That I don't do.
Which you don't do. What I found interesting and kind of a little challenging is it's a
right
lifted increase, but it's on a purl stitch. She has you do it on a purl stitch. I'm going to try to make a video about that, because the instructions she has, which are good, are for, you have to lift the stitch underneath in a certain direction. And she has it written out how to do it from a knit stitch. A purl stitch has the legs, but it's wrapped around in a funny way. So I have the way that I do it, and it's a little more of a scoop and dip thing than just the straightforward pictures she has. So it's another thing. It's why I might try to make several short videos on Monday based on my experience starting my ranunculus. And there's always fudging it, and it's not going to be perfect, and it's okay. But I might make some short videos that don't have pictures. I'm going to see how that goes, see how I feel about it. Because the only way I'm going to get enough videos done of different chunks of the sweater is if they're a little shorter.
I have in my sweater making, I do different increases like every time.
Mm-hmm.
So when in doubt, if you don't like it, just throw a backwards loop in there.
Just do your own, and see, for some people, they
do
go
a knit-
backwards loop.
Yeah.
For some people, even a backwards loop is a foreign concept. And that's another video I need to make at some point.
Yeah.
I have, the list is growing. Oh my gosh. But so what I would supplement in for that is potentially any increase you want to do in there. Knit front and back gets wonky with stitch count.
Yes.
But any increase that's going to go between stitches, and I have done quite a few. Like I have videos on a bunch. Any way to add in an extra stitch if her version of it is challenging for you, is not coming together for you, will probably in the long run be okay. So I'm trying to think of anything else for that, most difficult, most challenging. Sometimes, again, the way someone writes it out, if there aren't patterned repeats set up, sometimes you have to take a difficult pattern, and by difficult I mean with maybe not enough information for your brain, or making assumptions, or the pattern writer made some assumptions. Sometimes you have to reorganize it to make sense for you. So if it's got a chart and you're not comfortable with charts, or you just don't like them very much, we have knitters who will write the whole thing out, who will, or if it says, do the stuff in parentheses X number of times, they will write it out on a piece of paper so that they can cross it off as they come to it. So it makes more sense for them. They will, there's ways to adapt patterns to make it work for your brain. And sometimes knowing that, and sometimes you only know that by doing more patterns, but the more you work with different patterns, the more you say, okay, this is what's going to help me, or this part of it's not helpful. What do I do?
And we have a lot of knitters who follow a handful of pattern writers because those are the ones they like, how they like the styles, but they also probably subconsciously like how the patterns are written.
The formatting, the layout, all that kind of stuff. And so you'll find who you gravitate towards as well. One of the things I find about pattern repeats, and what people both in knit and crochet often do to condense their patterns, is they will do things so it kind of feels like a math formula. So if there's parentheses or brackets, that can often indicate that there's a repeat that's happening, and or asterisks to say repeat from the asterisk, or repeat something X number of times. Look for, like in a math formula, that what I equate it to is, in a math formula, things will be in, you do things in parentheses first. Within the parentheses, there also might be some rules, right? But if there's parentheses or brackets or other things, that's to indicate that this happens first, or you need to do these things are grouped together rather than distributing throughout, to start throwing some math terms in. So if you see that something has to be done a certain number of times, or there's a repeat, look for those asterisks or brackets or parentheses to say what's being repeated. And if it's the words are not right after something that's bracketed off, whether it be parentheses or the solid bracket, like the straight brackets and things, it could only refer to the words right in front of it. But if it's a grouping, they'll try to demonstrate that. And if it means you need to write that out rather than have it in parentheses, like if it says knit two together, it says knit one, knit two together, knit one, and the whole thing is in parentheses, and it says repeat that, you got to be careful not to fall into the trap of knit two together, knit one, and go back to the knit two together, because there was a knit one at the beginning. So once you get into a rhythm, it's going to be knit one, knit two together, knit one, knit one. So two single knits, knit two together, two single, like sometimes writing it out can help your brain go, oh, that's why my stitch count didn't work out. But some of that only comes with time and practice. It's not like there's a meme on, or a real sound on Instagram right now. It's like, how'd you get so good? And it's practice. I'll never be as good as you. Just practice. But it's just so like the talent, the blah, 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 practice. So try not to count yourself out on something if it's challenging at first. I think that's the whole difficult, challenging pattern thing, is sometimes it just takes practice. And the more you do, the more you might be capable of doing. Give yourself some grace on that. So what's our other question today?
Our other question, dear Becky and Lizzie. As I have started finishing projects, I find I now have a number of partial balls of yarn. How do knitters, crocheters, and other yarn enthusiasts store, catalog, and categorize their yarn? All tangled up.
All right, so we might want to talk about how other people do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw the caveat out there that
we have hot messes.
Yeah. Categorize. Like
that is a noble goal.
Sometimes I'm lucky if I can remember what the ball of yarn is when I pick it up from wherever we
can talk about because right now I'm asking Liz to gear up on these a little bit for the yarn crawl coming up. Shameless plug for the yarn crawl, May 3rd through 7th, which involves 11 yarn shops in the area, and we all do fun things. My leftovers, because essentially the shop is my stash and I have to knit for my shop, my stash here. I have yarn at home, and it's just it's in the people who help me move can verify this. There is no organizational component to it. It's a hot mess.
It might be slightly more organized than mine.
So we are not the experts, but we know lots of people who do stuff,
and how they tell us.
And they tell it so we can relay it. Because to continue on with here, like at home, you might actually see it in the background of pictures for knit night when my cat decides that this box of yarn that's a hot mess would be a good bed to sit in. You know, like it's just crazy. I tried one time to have like works in progress, which is not quite what the question is. Like works in progress that have been in timeout for a while, to each have their own bag and like line them up and like, you know, my leftovers from projects that I make here for the shop, we have a bucket over there and I put them in there. And then when Liz gets going on her minion bags of mystery and balls off 25 grams, and she's got some that will have a bunch of 10 grams and stuff in it, but usually we shoot for 5 25-gram balls in the minion bag of mystery for $10. But you never know what you're going to get until you open it. And some people that just frustrates the high heavens, so don't spend the $10. But often when she's winding them off, we will have to go, okay, what was this? What was that? You know, we'll make some guesses. We know our yarn well enough that we almost can pick up a random tidbit of it and go, oh, this is, I want to say 95% of the time we can do that.
I've almost been able to do that tying my COVID balls. Like I know fiber space because that's the most in the drawer, but like now I'm like, ooh, this is Daydream Dye Works. Ooh, this is, you know, whatever.
And because we went through a phase, like when it was here in the shop, when we first started the minion bags of mystery, it would be people would open them here and ask them what they were. And then when we're mailing them out to people, if we have time and energy, we will write on this little scrap, like, here's what you're getting. It's like a little sampler of random yarn.
I can't get around the if we have time and energy because Rebecca's like, put the post-it note in there.
Well, there's been time when we haven't, right?
No, actually there hasn't, because
I thought,
you know, I'm like, we're going to stop. And you were like, but are we? And I'm like, fine. And so
I mean, if we can identify it, we will.
Yeah.
If we can't, we'll put a big question mark. But that's, you know, when you are organizing minion bags of mystery, sometimes you try to go by relative thickness and, you know, things like that. So to address the question of how to store leftovers, it's just like very carefully. No, there's so many options. There's really so many options. And in my dream, like we can address what we know other people do. And my dream organizational process, if I had time and energy and my copious spare time, would be based on what a lot of other knitters kind of do, which is, which I would love to have it organized probably like the shop. I like to organize by thickness of yarn. So then maybe I have a chance if I don't have the ball band of like, if I need worsted weight for a project, it's in one bin. I would go by thickness of yarn. And if I could subdivide it, I might go by fiber if I know it, like plant versus animal, because they behave differently. But I've had some people ask questions over on my other channel, and I haven't been able to address them yet of like, well, what fibers work well for sweaters? And that's a tough question to answer, or keep their shape, or are there certain stitches that keep their shape? And I'm like, that's no. That's dependent on so many factors, because even the fibers, depending on how the yarn is constructed, they're going to behave differently, and depending on the yarn, they might behave differently. So there's maybe general ideas, but it's like, but I might want cottons in the same project if I'm using leftovers, and I might want wools in the same project if I'm using leftovers, or I might not care.
In my perfect world, I just throw all of my, especially smaller balls. If I have more than like half a skein of yarn left, I'm going to save that in a drawer with the rest of its friends. Or
so you might try to organize it by specific yarn.
Well,
as much as if there's,
I have a lot of Daydream dye works,
yeah.
So I try and keep that all in one drawer. It doesn't always stay in one drawer, but I try, and but if I have just small little balls left, they all go into a bag or a bucket or whatever, to eventually big scrappy something, a Afghan, a shawl,
And the scrappy stuff doesn't have to all be the same thickness.
No.
So some of this question depends. I mean, I know the person is asking us, but some of what they might be hoping for in an answer might also depend on who they are. Like how they like to organize is going to affect what they do.
I will say that some of our more organized knitters and crocheters. I'm
thinking Carol and Amy D, shout out. We might have a couple others we put on that list, but that
if you want to categorize and know exactly what you have, either an Excel spreadsheet, and we know people that have done that, or put it all into Ravelry, and Ravelry keeps track.
Ravelry will keep track of it.
Yeah. Some people write everything down in a book and they staple their ball band into their book. Like, there are a billion ways. My yarn is lucky if it makes it into a drawer.
Like, if you want to be organized about what you have left and how much you have of it, I would recommend, like, the low-tech hack would be put it in a Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
With your ball band, if you still have it, like any leftovers. And then those Ziploc bags, first of all, those Ziploc bags, if you need space and you run out of space, you can suck as much air out of them as possible. And then the next layer on that might be plastic tubs with lids, that kind of thing. That shouldn't hurt the yarn. If anything, it should protect it from critters, from outside forces. We know some people who put cotton balls with, like, shout out to Carol, with a little bit of lavender on them, because that can also help keep critters away. But you may or may not want to keep that in this plastic bag with the yarn. You may want to keep that in the overall container as an overall watchdog type of thing. Some people, they can't do scents. They can't have that getting on their yarn. Some essential oils, if they're too saturated, will damage your yarn. So you don't want to get them right on the yarn in full force, that kind of thing. So whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you have room for. And if you don't have a lot of room, you could donate. I don't know if a lot of thrift stores are taking only half used balls of yarn, though. They might be taking like whole skeins of yarn if you want to ever declutter your overall stash. So
Council on Aging does.
Okay.
Like, they just fill a Ziploc bag with little bits,
and you can get it's kind of like our bags of mystery.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I save all mine. I do know one knitter who is like, my stash can only be the size of this bucket. Like, that's it. And so
that's amazing.
I
left that behind a long time ago, but I live by myself. So
Mine
okay.
has gotten to a 1,400 square foot bucket.
She is her name for her house. Yeah. Well, and I would say the sooner, if you want to be organized, the sooner you can get on top of that, the better. Like as you finish a project, put it in a Ziploc with even if you don't have the ball band, a scrap piece of paper, if you remember the name of the yarn.
Yep.
Because I can say from experience, once you get even a couple days removed from a project, get into a new project, it can be harder to remember what was this. I don't remember. Like we work at a yarn shop and we are surrounded by yarn, so we can make an educated guess. Our challenges are when someone comes in with a piece of yarn that's this big and hopes that we have the yarn in the shop. Because
I can generally tell if it's synthetic or wool. That requires a lighter and going outside. And
don't let her turn on the lighter in the shop.
Yeah. But like there are ways to but there are some yarns that can feel very similar, and you know, so waiting until nobody has any idea what it is kind of difficult.
And people bring in yarn from their stash from years ago, and we've only been open just over 4.5 years, and they're hoping that we have it in the shop, and that's harder. That's so much harder if you don't have any information on it. So as much organization as you can do, as you're comfortable with. Obviously, we are not that organized at home, so
if
we're
your thing is
we're not trying to,
or electronic spreadsheets.
We're not trying to set the bar high, like we're up on a pedestal and come join us, because we're not up there. We have knitters who are up there. I have knitters who tell me, oh, it's easy to put your patterns on Ravelry. Just, when you start your project, get it up there. And I have one project up there that a pattern designer asked me to put up there because best intentions, right? Everybody's different. Some things, like getting all your whole stash into Ravelry, for some people, that is the exciting thing they want to do this weekend. And for other people, it's just dragging your feet like, no. And someday, it never happens.
If you're a new knitter, starting some of that is a whole lot easier than I've been knitting and crocheting for 20 plus years.
And you want me to do what?
And I now have a 1,400 cubic foot bucket of yarn to put up on Ravelry. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's one theory of what I would say is, if you're a new knitter, you have a chance to start good habits. So go ahead and give it a shot, but also try not to put too much pressure on yourself, because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you're a bad knitter. Because we're disorganized knitters, but hopefully we're decent knitters, and we're big fans of, if you knit, you're a knitter.
Yes.
End of sentence. So if you crochet, you're a crocheter. It's not about being better or worse than somebody else. It's about, where are you on your journey? So there's goals and aspirations, but there's also finding a way to be forgiving of yourself if you don't hit those. Maybe resetting goals, or maybe just changing them, or taking your ideas in a new direction. So if your goal, if the person who wrote in, if your goal is to be organized with your leftovers, start as early as you can. Find something that works for you, whether it's something we've mentioned or something that we said that said, ooh, I like that, but I would do this. Awesome.
And that there are people that don't keep any of their leftovers. Like, we're done. That's it. So it depends on,
We have people who try to give their leftovers back to us, and we have no use for them. So thrift stores, there you go. See if someone else could use it. That's a wonderful, noble gesture. So I think we have covered our questions for as much as we have time for right now. We should wrap up and look towards opening up the shop. So it's not like earlier this week where it was like, oh no, someone's walking up. So, because that
is a thing.
That was feeling kind of abrupt. We have, if you'd like to ask us questions, which we tend to save for Thursdays and address, if you want us to wax philosophical on something regarding knitting and crocheting more specifically, you can write us. We have all of the letters that have been written to us. If you want to send us a card, you send those to Dear Becky and Lizzie Sun Dragon Art and Fiber, 35 South Broad Street, Brevard, North Carolina, 28712. If you want to get it to us faster, you can email
Liz at sundragonartandfiber.com.
all written out. And I think I tried to put that in the descriptions below. I'll try to check that before I publish. We have Sit and Stitch tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. on Zoom. You can join with a shop phone number.
828-877-3550.
And that is East Coast time. With the time change, it might set you off if you're tuning in from another country. I think Jan on Sunday was saying that their version of it happens after ours. And so then we're off, but then we're not. And then, in terms of how many hours, we're still hours off. But lather, rinse, repeat next week. We'll have a Sit and Stitch on Tuesday night. I'm still rolling around the idea of when the weather is nice, if we want to dabble with one of those becoming in person. I don't want to leave the Zoom behind because we have people join us from all over the place, which is pretty cool. I'm still debating which night will be in person and which one will be online, but it's not happening
And
yet.
some of it will be weather dependent, because if
Which
we're
doesn't
all
help people's
outside and it
schedules.
starts raining, we're not all coming inside.
Not right now. No. The sister of Omicron is coming. So the other stuff, our next Sunday Sit and Stitch, like in terms of events coming up, our next Sunday, we're not having a Sunday Sit and Stitch in April. The next crazy fun event for the shop in terms of a bigger national event or a bigger area event, local yarn store day, I believe, is going to be
The 30th.
the 30th of April. So we're not doing a Sunday Sit and Stitch. There's too much to get ready for coming up. I'm sorry if you're someone who joins us only once a month. Hang on, find other ways to communicate with us and with the community, and we'll see you in May. April 30th is local yarn store day. Sometimes in the past, Casa Pinka has done something where you get a free pattern if you buy yarn from your local yarn store right leading up to that. We'll see if she publishes something this year. Be on the lookout. The next big event for us is right on its heels. We are having our first yarn crawl, Western North Carolina yarn crawl, in about, it's 2 years, but it feels like 3 because it's been 3 Mays, but it's 2 years. But yeah, it's true. Since our last one was held is 3 years because the last one was held in 2019.
Yep.
So that's where the 11 yarn shops in our area will all be doing fun things. And we've both shaved off the end of it and added to the beginning of it. So it is May 3rd through 7th. It's a Tuesday through a Saturday. It's the week leading up to Mother's Day. We always tell people Mother's Day weekend, mark your calendars. And it's that weekend, except on Sunday, spend it with your mom. If you and your mom want to come to some of our yarn shops, do it before that. Do it on Saturday, or if you have time to come during the week. All 11 yarn shops will be doing cool things. And it's not necessarily how many yarn shops can you get to unless you want to personally do that. It's go to as many or as few as you want.
In the olden days, before COVID, we used to ask, are you camping or crawling? Because we had some people that would come and just hang out. That
will be weather dependent because it will be outside.
If you want to camp, it will be outside.
Dress appropriately.
If it looks sunny, you might want to layer up. If it looks rainy,
man-made wind tunnel.
We're not camping inside this year.
No, we're not camping inside this year, but we are doing the crawl, which is really exciting. So mark your calendars. Sometimes in olden days, pre-COVID, people would travel from all over the country because they like traveled around for all the different crawls. So ours is back. Engage with it as you will. I'm very excited about it, though. It doesn't show right now because there's just too much going on in my head, but I'll get more excited, like energy wise, towards you all as the date gets closer. But in the consortium, I'm also kind of logistics planner. So there's too much going on in my head. But it should be really, really fun. So, subscribers. Yes.
We are at 761.
So exciting. We are over the hump of the halfway point to 800. In fact, we're 11 people past that. We only have 39 more people to go before we can offer you the 800 people subscriber sale. which y'all know is going to be a little bit bigger than the 700 subscriber sale. So if you are not subscribed yet,
Like,
do it.
Ring the bell, all the fun stuff. If you want the
Subscribing.
sale, subscribe.
Subscribing doesn't cost you anything. And it's not like we don't have a list of subscribers. So it's not like we're like, well,
We don't
so-and-so
even
did
know
this and that.
who those 700 people are. Some people
It's
come
just
to the
awesome.
shop and they're like, oh yeah, I watch you all the time. And we're like, okay.
Are you subscribed? No, we don't ask that because, yeah. But it doesn't cost anything. If you'd like to monetarily support us, especially if you're not about to buy yarn for the foreseeable future, that you can do over on patreon.com/sundragon. We have monthly subscription fees that are as small as $3 and they go way up from there, but you can get swag from them. You can get your name in the credits at the end of this video. And we thank you mightily, but we thank our subscribers too. We thank everybody. So yeah, just even like it, put a comment on it, anything you can do to interact with this video, be it small or big, helps us. So help us help you, because everybody gets a sale if you watch when we hit 800. And usually we keep that sale going for a couple weeks because not everyone has caught up. So regardless of where you are in watching our videos, we had someone who was commenting on like episode 2 and episode 100. I'm going to check in with you about that later because they might have been asking you some questions.
I don't ever
I keep
look.
track. I'm alerted. She's not, so she has to go hunt for them. But wherever you are in watching, keep an eye on the subscription number for our channel overall.
I want to say with the 700, we did just a week of sale because
We'll see.
the sale gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
So we might
So-
not be able. Excellent point. This is one of the reasons
Keep
that
an eye
Liz
on
is here.
subscribers.
Yes, keep an eye on subscribers. If it hits 800, like usually we have to let it ride for a couple of days so that we're sure it's not going to dip back down again because numbers fluctuate. They go, but if you see it consistently over 800, check our most recent videos, even if you're trying to watch them from the beginning, because we could mention the sale and we might not put it in the description. We might only put it, say it. So you have to watch it because we're mean like that. But it's only a YouTube sale. Like people who get only my newsletter or only come into the shop don't know about it. So it's super secret, but not really, because this is all over YouTube, maybe. Anyway, we have to open the shop. Look, we wasted enough time until the shop opened.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
It's not a thing.
It's so not a thing. Hopefully we'll have all fun, like, who knows, maybe I'll do more of this. I didn't put this in morning meditation because I was worried it would make all the anxious people who don't need to start till April. We still have a week. It would make them all be like, ah, but maybe I'll start talking about it next week. We'll see how this weekend goes. There's a lot planned. Look at all the little Ranunculi babies.
This is my fingering weight.
We're trying to get ahead of y'all a little
I've
bit.
got sport fingering.
not about
I really
speed,
want
though.
worsted. I just couldn't find my worsted.
If some of you are really fast knitters, you're going to get ahead of me at some point. And so if there's something you want to see a video on and I haven't made it yet, you might just have to wait. We'll do what we can. Love you all. Love you. Bye-bye. We'll see you later. Have a good weekend.